Hello and good evening. Thank you for joining for tonight's dark and scary cryptid horror stories. Let us know in the comments where you are listening from and if there is a cryptid you would like me to make a story on. Now for tonight's stories, I hope you enjoy. Operation Imoenefelo, a military horror thriller. Chapter 1. The helicopter crossed into Wisconsin airspace at 3:47, flying nap of the Earth to avoid radar detection. Inside the cabin, 5 operatives sat in silence, checking their gear with the methodical precision that came from years of training and dozens of missions in places that didn't officially exist. Commander Marcus Reaper Holt sat by the open door, his face painted in blacks and greens, his eyes scanning the terrain below. At 42, he was the oldest member of the team, the veteran, the one who'd been doing this long enough to know when something felt wrong. This felt wrong. The mission brief had been sparse, even by their standards. Asset designated X9, possible hostile, capture alive at all costs. Location, rural area near Bray Road, Wisconsin. Local reports of livestock mutilations, unspecified animal attacks, possible hoax or hysteria. Standard stuff. Weird local legends, Bigfoot sightings, UFOs. Reaper had chased them all. Usually turned out to be coyotes or bears or meth heads in costumes. Occasionally something more interesting, a cryptid that was actually a new species, a mutation, an escaped exotic animal. Those were the good missions, the ones that justified the black budgets and the classified clearances. But this one was different. Reaper could feel it in his gut, that old instinct that had kept him alive through firefights in Kandahar, ambushes in Mosul, the kind of ops where you didn't get to write home afterward. 5 minutes, the pilot's voice crackled in their headsets. Reaper turned to his team. They were ready. They were always ready. Lieutenant Sarah, Vex Chen, sat across from him, her slender fingers dancing over the controls of a military-grade drone, checking its systems for the 3rd time. She was the team's tech specialist, the one who could make electronics do things their manufacturers never intended. 29 years old, MIT educated, recruited right out of a DARPA lab. She looked too young for this work, too delicate, but Reaper had seen her kill a man with her bare hands when the mission required it. Next to her, Sergeant Tom Doc Martinez adjusted his medical kit, his dark eyes focused inward, probably running through trauma protocols. Doc was the team's medic, a former ER surgeon who joined the military after his residency. He'd saved more lives than Reaper could count, and ended a few when necessary. He had a bedside manner that could charm a snake, and a temper that could kill one. Corporal James "Ghost" Williams was checking his weapons, his movements economical and precise. Ghost was the team's scout, their point man, the one who moved through hostile territory like he was part of the landscape. He was also the youngest, 26, with a reputation for luck that bordered on supernatural. He'd walked away from crashes that should have killed him, firefights where everyone else died, situations that defied survival. And finally, Sergeant First Class David "Havoc" O'Connor, the team's heavy weapons specialist and resident philosopher. Havoc was built like a linebacker, with hands that could crush concrete and a mind that could quote Nietzsche while snapping a man's neck. He was 35, Irish by descent, Boston by birth, and utterly without fear. "Listen up," Reaper said, his voice pitched to carry over the rotor noise. "Last chance for questions." "What's X9?" Ghost asked, not looking up from his weapon check. "Unknown. The asset has been designated X9 based on previous encounters." "Previous encounters?" Vex looked up from her drone. "This thing's been spotted before." "Multiple times. First reported in the 1980s. Then again in 97, 2003, 2015. Pattern of livestock mutilations, property damage, no confirmed human casualties." "No confirmed," Doc murmured, key phrase. "Local law enforcement has been cooperative but uninformed. They think we're animal control, federal wildlife management." And what are we really? Havoc asked, his voice casual. Reaper met his eyes. Hunters. The word hung in the cabin, heavier than it should have been. 2 minutes, the pilot called. Gear up, Reaper ordered. We drop in 1. Vex drone goes up first. Doc, you're on medical standby. Ghost point. Havoc, cover our 6. I take center. Acknowledgments came through the headsets. The team moved as one, rising from their seats, checking parachutes, weapons, comms. One thing, Reaper added. The brief mentioned something else. Last transmission from the advanced team cut to static, replaced by sounds. Sounds, Vex asked. Animal sounds, growling, but human intelligence says it was wrong, not matching any known species. So we're hunting something that makes sounds we can't identify, Havoc said. Business as usual. There's more, Reaper paused, choosing his words. The advanced team, they were experienced, special forces, and they disappeared, all 4 of them. No bodies, no equipment, no sign of struggle, just gone. The cabin went silent. Gone, Doc asked. As in vanished, 12 hours ago. They checked in at 1800, reported contact with X9, then nothing. Maybe they extracted, Ghost suggested. Maybe. Their extraction bird never showed. Command waited 6 hours before sending us. Reaper looked at each of them in turn. Whatever's out there, it took out 4 special forces operators without a trace. We're not hunting deer. Copy that, Ghost said quietly. 30 seconds. Reaper moved to the door, the wind snatching at his gear, the ground rushing by below. He counted down in his head, feeling the familiar pre-mission tightness in his chest, the mix of fear and focus that made him good at this. Go. He jumped. The night swallowed him, and he fell toward the Wisconsin woods, toward whatever was waiting in the darkness. Chapter 2. They landed in a clearing 2 miles from Bray Road, their parachutes collapsing in the tall grass, their movements practiced and silent. Within 90 seconds they were assembled, weapons ready, comms checked. Vex drone, Reaper ordered. The lieutenant launched the compact quadcopter, its rotors whisper quiet, its camera feeding directly to her tactical tablet. She sent it upward, into the darkness, scanning the terrain ahead. No thermal signatures, she reported. No movement, just woods. Ghost, take point. Havoc, you're with him. Doc, Vex, stay close to me. They moved out, 5 shadows in the night, following a trail only Ghost could see. The forest was dense, old-growth pine and hardwood, the kind of woods that had been standing for centuries, that remembered things the modern world had forgotten. Reaper felt it again, that sense of wrongness. The silence was too complete. No insects, no night birds, no scurrying of small mammals, just the sound of their own breathing and the soft crunch of boots on pine needles. Contact, Ghost whispered, bearing 240. They froze, weapons raised. Reaper squinted into the darkness, his night vision goggles picking up nothing but trees and shadows. What do you see? Tracks, Ghost moved forward, kneeling. Deep, spaced far apart, whatever made them was moving fast. How fast? 40, maybe 50 miles per hour. Impossible, nothing moved that fast through woods this dense, not on the ground. Show me. Ghost illuminated the tracks with a red-filtered flashlight. The impressions in the soft earth were clear claw marks, long and curved, set in a pattern that suggested bipedal motion. But the stride length, Reaper measured it with his eyes. 6 feet between prints, minimum. That's not a bear, Doc said. No shit, Havoc muttered. Spread out, Reaper ordered. Wide formation. Vex, keep that drone overhead. They advanced, following the tracks, every sense alert. The woods seemed to close in around them, the trees pressing closer, the darkness thickening. It was Ghost who found the first body. It was hanging from a tree 20 feet up, impaled on a broken branch. The uniform was standard issue, the gear still attached, but the body. Jesus, Doc whispered. Reaper had seen dead men before. He'd seen bodies burned, blown apart, dismembered, but this was different. The corpse had been arranged, limbs positioned at precise angles, head tilted just so. The face frozen in an expression of perfect serenity, eyes open, staring at nothing. "That's Corporal Jameson," Havoc said, his voice tight. "Advance team." "How'd he get up there?" Vex asked. "Those branches wouldn't hold a person's weight." "They held his," Reaper said. "Doc, can you reach him?" "Not without gear." Doc was already scanning the body with his medical imager. No visible trauma, no blood, but his chest. There's something wrong with his chest. Define wrong. It looks caved in, like something crushed his ribcage, but there's no blood, no tissue damage, just compressed. Reaper stared up at the body, at the peaceful face and the destroyed chest. "Cut him down." "Sir, we should." "I said cut him down, that's an order." It took 20 minutes to retrieve the body, working in silence, fighting the sense that they were being watched. When they finally lowered Jameson to the ground, Doc examined him more closely. "He's been dead at least 12 hours, maybe more. Rigor mortis has come and gone, but—" Doc paused, frowning. "His skin, it's wrong." "Wrong how?" "It's not decaying, no bacterial activity, no decomposition. It's like he's been preserved." "Mummified?" "No, just stopped, like something hit the pause button on his biology." Reaper knelt beside the body, studying the face. He'd known Jameson. Not well, but they'd trained together, shared a barracks. He was a good operator, competent, professional, not the type to get himself killed on a routine mission. "Where are the others?" he asked. "If this is one of 4, where are the rest?" "Drone's not picking up anything," Vex reported. "No heat signatures, no movement, just woods." "Then we look the old-fashioned way. Ghost, find me more tracks." They searched for another hour, finding nothing but forest. The tracks they'd been following ended abruptly, as if whatever made them had simply stopped and disappeared. At 500, Reaper called a halt. "We make camp here, set up sensors, establish perimeter. We rest until noon, then continue the search." "Sir," Ghost said, "I don't think we should stay here." "Why not?" Ghost pointed to the trees around them. Reaper followed his gaze and felt ice form in his stomach. The trees were marked, claw marks, deep gouges in the bark arranged in patterns, symbols almost, or warnings. "How did we miss that?" Vex asked. "We didn't," Ghost said. "They weren't there before." Reaper checked his watch. The marks hadn't been there when they arrived. He was certain of it, which meant. "It's watching us," Havoc said quietly. "Has been since we landed." "Then let's give it a show," Reaper ordered. "Perimeter now, sensors outward. We sleep in shifts, 2 on, 3 off. I want eyes on those trees all night." They set up camp in silence, each of them aware that they were not alone, that something intelligent and patient was observing their every move. Vex launched a second drone, this one equipped with thermal imaging and motion sensors. She sent it in widening circles, mapping the terrain, searching for any sign of the creature or the missing advance team. "I'm picking up something," she said, her voice tense. "Bearing 180, distance, 800 meters. "What is it?" "I don't know, it's moving fast." She paused, her eyes widening. 40 miles per hour through dense forest on 2 legs. "That's impossible," Doc said. "Watch." She projected the thermal feed onto her tablet. A shape, vaguely humanoid but wrong, the proportions off, the gait strange, moving at speed through the trees. Then it stopped, turned, and looked directly at the drone. "It's looking at us," Vex whispered. The creature raised a hand, waved. Then it was gone, vanished from the feed, leaving no trace. "Where did it go?" Reaper demanded. "I don't know, it just stopped. No heat signature, no movement, like it disappeared." "Replay that." She did. They watched in silence as the creature turned, waved, and vanished. That's not thermal masking, Havoc said. That's not anything. No, Reaper agreed, it's not. They sat in silence, the darkness pressing in around them, the weight of the unknown heavy in the air. We need to find the others, Doc said. The rest of the advance team, if they're still alive. They're not, Ghost interrupted. Look at the trees. They looked. The claw marks had multiplied, spreading across the surrounding trunks, forming a pattern that was almost deliberate, almost intelligent. A circle. They were in the center of a circle. It's hurting us, Doc realized. This whole time, the tracks, the sightings, the marks, it's moving us where it wants us to go. Then we go somewhere else, Reaper said. Pack up, we're moving now. They moved, breaking camp with practiced efficiency, weapons ready, senses alert. But as they tried to leave the clearing, they found their path blocked. Trees had fallen. Massive oaks and pines, ancient trees, lying across the trail as if they'd been felled by a giant's hand. The trunks were snapped, not cut, the breaks fresh, sap still oozing. Those trees were standing 5 minutes ago, Vex said. I swear to God they were standing. Backtrack, Reaper ordered. Find another route. But every path they tried was blocked. Fallen trees, tangled underbrush, sudden ravines that hadn't been there before. The forest was closing in, reshaping itself, trapping them. GPS is wrong, Vex reported, checking her tablet. We're walking in circles. I've got us 3 miles from where we started, but the terrain doesn't match. Compass. Spinning, magnetic interference. Reaper pulled out his map, a paper backup, the kind that couldn't be hacked or jammed. He studied it in the beam of his flashlight, trying to orient himself. We're here, he said, pointing. Bray Road should be 2 miles east, but we've been walking east for an hour and haven't found it. Because it's not there, Ghost said, or we're not where we think we are. A sound drifted through the trees, distant, faint, but unmistakable. Laughter. Human laughter, but wrong. Wet, gurgling, like someone drowning and finding it funny. That's not a wolf, Havoc said. No, Reaper agreed, it's not. The laughter grew louder, closer, seeming to come from all directions at once. Then it stopped, cut off abruptly, leaving silence so complete it hurt. Contact, Ghost shouted, firing. The muzzle flash illuminated something tall and pale, standing not 10 feet away. Something with yellow eyes and too many teeth. Then darkness again, and the sound of something moving through the trees, fast, circling them. Form up, Reaper ordered. Back to back, don't let it separate us. They formed a circle, weapons outward, waiting. The darkness was alive with sound now, rustling, breathing, the soft pad of feet on pine needles. It was everywhere and nowhere, surrounding them, closing in. I can't see it, Vex said, her voice shaking. Thermal's clear, no heat signatures, but I can hear it. It's not showing up on thermal, Doc realized. That's why the advance team didn't see it coming. It's invisible to our sensors. Then we use our eyes, Reaper said. Flashlights now. 5 beams of light cut through the darkness, revealing trees and underbrush and shadows. But no creature, nothing where the laughter had come from. Then the light started to flicker. What the hell? Havoc smacked his flashlight. These are military grade, they don't flicker. One by one the lights died, leaving them in absolute darkness. Night vision, Reaper ordered. They activated their NVGs, and the world snapped back into view, green and gray and unreal. And there, standing between the trees, watching them. It was tall, at least 7 feet, maybe taller, pale, almost luminous in the night vision, with long arms that hung below its knees. The face was wrong, too long, the jaw extended, the mouth open to reveal rows of teeth. And the eyes, yellow, glowing, reflecting their light back at them. Hold your fire, Reaper whispered. I want to see what it does. The creature tilted its head, bird-like, studying them. Then it spoke. Wrong weapons. The voice was wrong, human enough to understand but distorted like someone speaking through water or through time. You brought guns, it said. Bullets, fire, these don't work, not on me, not on what I am. What are you? Reaper asked. The creature laughed again, that wet, drowning sound. I'm the thing you forgot, the thing you tried to bury, the thing that waits in the woods while you build your cities and pretend you're safe. We can communicate, Reaper said, keeping his voice calm. We can negotiate. Negotiate? The creature stepped closer and they could see it more clearly now. The skin was wrong, moving like liquid, rippling and reforming. The shape was fluid, shifting between human and animal and something else, something that predated both. You want to negotiate with a god. You're not a god. No, the creature's smile was terrible. I'm older than gods, I'm what was here before. It moved. Fast, impossibly fast. One moment it was standing, the next it was on Ghost, its claws at his throat, its teeth at his face. Ghost screamed. Reaper fired, 3 rounds center mass, and the creature spun, hit, but not stopped. It laughed, the bullet wounds closing even as they watched, flesh knitting together like water flowing backward. Wrong weapons, it said again, always wrong. It vanished into the trees, taking Ghost with it. His screams faded, then stopped. Ghost, Vex shouted, moving to pursue. Hold, Reaper grabbed her arm. Don't chase it, that's what it wants. It's got Ghost. And if we run after it blind, it'll have us all. Form up, maintain perimeter. They waited, trembling, listening, but Ghost didn't come back. The woods were silent. We need to find him, Doc said. He's still alive, I know he is. We will, Reaper said, but we need to be smart. This thing, it's not what we thought, it's not an animal, it's not a cryptid, it's something else. What? Havoc asked. I don't know, but we're going to find out, and then we're going to kill it. They stood in the darkness, 4 soldiers surrounded by woods that had become a trap, facing an enemy they didn't understand. And somewhere in the night, something was eating their friend. Chapter 3. They found Ghost's vest 2 hours later, tangled in a thorn bush 300 yards from their position. It was intact, unbloodied, the tactical gear still attached, but Ghost was gone. No blood, no tracks, no sign of struggle, just the vest left behind like a discarded shell. He's still alive, Doc said, but his voice lacked conviction. He has to be alive. Maybe, Reaper said, or maybe it took him somewhere for later. For what? Reaper didn't answer. He was studying the vest the way it had been positioned, hung carefully, almost reverently, not thrown, not dropped, placed. It's playing with us, Vex said, leading us on. Then we stop playing, Reaper ordered. New plan. We find shelter somewhere defensible. We wait for dawn. Dawn is 5 hours away, Havoc pointed out. You think we can survive 5 hours? I think we don't have a choice. This thing knows these woods. It can move through them in ways we can't. We need to even the odds. They moved slowly, carefully, every sense alert. The forest had changed, become a maze of fallen trees and impassable ravines. But Reaper kept them on course, using the stars when the compass failed, using dead reckoning when the stars were obscured. At 5:30, they found the shack. It was old, decades old maybe, built from rough-hewn logs and rusted tin. It sat in a clearing, surrounded by a circle of stones, weathered and ancient. Smoke rose from a chimney, thin and gray, suggesting recent occupation. That's impossible, Vex said. No one lives out here. The survey maps show this area as uninhabited. Survey maps are wrong, Reaper said. Standard for black sites. You think this is a government installation. I think someone built it, and someone keeps the fire going. They approached cautiously, weapons ready. The door was unlocked, hanging slightly ajar. Reaper pushed it open with his rifle, revealing a single room dominated by a wood stove and a rough table. And the walls. Covered in newspaper clippings, hundreds of them yellowed with age. Headlines screaming about sightings, attacks, hoaxes. Photos of the same creature they'd seen or things like it. And one headline, larger than the others, dated 1987. Hoaxer confesses, Bray Road beast was man in costume. But underneath, someone had scrawled in black ink. He lied, they all lied, it wasn't US. What is this? Doc asked, moving closer to examine the clippings. A shrine. A warning, Vex said. She was looking at the floor at something Reaper hadn't noticed. A cage, large, rusted, big enough to hold a bear or a man. Inside the cage, a piece of paper. Reaper knelt, reaching through the bars, retrieving the note. It was handwritten, the ink faded but legible. If you're reading this, you made the same mistake we did. You thought you could catch it. You thought you could understand it. You were wrong. It wasn't us, the hoax. It wasn't us. We tried to tell them, but no one believed. We put on the suits, made the tracks, took the photos, but the real thing was already here, watching us, learning from us. It wears faces now, our faces. It knows what we know. It remembers what we remember. Don't trust the woods. Don't trust the dark. And whatever you do, don't let it speak to you. It will use your voice. It will use your memories. It will make you doubt what you know. We're dead. We're all dead. But maybe you can learn from our mistake. Kill the lights. Kill the cameras. Kill anything that lets it see you. Then run. Don't look back. The note was unsigned. No date. But the paper was old, brittle, disintegrating at the edges. This was written decades ago, Vex said. The 1980s, maybe. The hoax confession was 87. So there were others, Havoc said, before us, other teams, other hunters. And they all died. Reaper crumpled the note. Just like the advance team, just like Ghost. We don't know Ghost is dead, Doc protested. We know he's gone. We know whatever took him left his vest behind like a trophy. Reaper moved to the window, scanning the tree line. This thing, it's not just hunting us, it's collecting us, studying us, learning. Learning what? Vex asked. How we think, how we fight, how we die. The wind shifted, carrying a sound from outside, humming, low, tuneless, like someone trying to remember a song. It's here, Havoc whispered. They formed up, backs to the walls, weapons trained on the door. The humming grew louder, closer, and with it came the smell. Wet fur, rotting meat, something older. Don't fire unless I give the order, Reaper commanded. We need to see what it does. The door opened. Ghost stood in the entrance, swaying slightly, his face pale in the moonlight filtering through the windows. He looked at them with eyes that were wrong, too yellow, too reflective. Ghost, Doc took a step forward. Don't, Reaper warned. But he's not Ghost, look at him. Doc looked, really looked, and he saw. The way Ghost moved, too fluid, too jointless. The way his skin rippled at the edges like water. The way his smile showed too many teeth. Hello, friends, Ghost said, and his voice was Ghost's voice, but the cadence was wrong. The emphasis on the wrong syllables. I've been learning so much. Get out, Reaper said, his rifle steady. That's not your body. Isn't it? Ghost tilted his head, that bird-like gesture they'd seen before. I found him in the woods. He was screaming, so I stopped the screaming, and I wore him like a coat, like a mask. You're wearing him, Vex whispered. His skin, his face. I am him now, Ghost smiled. I have his memories, his skills, his fears. I know where you come from, Reaper. I know about your daughter. Sarah, 12 years old, lives with her mother in Virginia. Reaper's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't. I know about your dreams, Vex, about the accident. The car crash that killed your sister. You blame yourself, you should. Vex made a sound, half gasp, half sob. And Doc, Ghost turned to the medic. Your brother, the overdose. You were there, weren't you? You could have saved him, but you didn't. Shut up, Doc whispered. I'm just sharing what I learned. Ghost stepped fully into the room, the door swinging shut behind him. Ghost had such interesting memories, such pain, such guilt. It's delicious. You're not Ghost, Reaper said, and you're going to give him back. Can't already digested, Ghost patted his stomach, but I kept the important parts, the parts that make you weak. He moved faster than any human, and suddenly he was behind Doc, his hand, Ghost's hand at the medic's throat. This one wants to save people, it's his weakness, he can't stop trying. Ghost leaned close to Doc's ear, even when there's nothing to save. Let him go, Reaper ordered. Or what, you'll shoot, through your friend, Ghost laughed, that wet drowning sound. I don't think so. He released Doc, shoving him forward, and retreated to the door. I'm going to enjoy this, all of you, one by one. I'll wear your faces, your voices, your memories, and when I'm done there will be nothing left but the woods and the waiting. Why, Reaper asked, why us, why anyone? Ghost paused. For a moment his expression flickered, something almost human passing across his borrowed face. Because you forgot, all of you, the old ways, the old agreements. You built your cities and your guns and your science, and you forgot that the woods belong to us, that the night belongs to us, that you were never the dominant species, just the loudest. So this is revenge. This is education. Ghost opened the door, stepping back into the darkness. I'm going to teach you fear, the way you taught your children, the way you taught each other, the way you forgot. He was gone, vanished into the night, leaving only the smell of wet fur and the echo of his laughter. Doc fell to his knees, gasping. Havoc moved to him, checking his vitals, but Doc waved him away. I'm fine, he didn't. He didn't hurt me, just wanted to scare me. He did more than scare, Reaper said. He knew things, private things, things Ghost couldn't have known. He's reading us, Vex said, somehow picking up our thoughts. Or he's just good at guessing, Havoc suggested. Psychological warfare. It doesn't matter how, Reaper said. What matters is that he's inside our heads, and we need to get him out. How? We stop thinking like soldiers, start thinking like hunters. Reaper moved to the table, spreading out his map. This thing, it knows these woods, but it's not omniscient. It can be surprised. It can be trapped. With what? Vex asked. Bullets don't work, fire doesn't work. Then we find what does work. Reaper looked at the walls, at the clippings, at the history of failure and death. Someone has faced this before. Someone has survived. We just need to find out how. They searched the shack looking for clues, for weapons, for anything that might help. In a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards, Vex found a journal. Leather-bound, water-damaged, the pages filled with cramped handwriting. This is from the 80s, she said, reading the first page. From one of the hoaxers, the ones who confessed. Read it, Reaper ordered. She read aloud, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. We thought it was a game, a joke. We made the suits, took the photos, sent them to the papers. We wanted attention, fame. We were stupid. The real thing found us. It had been watching, waiting. It knew what we were doing, and it was curious. It started appearing at our hoax sites, improving our work, making the tracks deeper, the damage worse. At first we thought it was one of us. Then we realized it was something else. It started following us home, standing outside our windows, humming old songs. We tried to tell people, but who would believe us? We'd already confessed to the hoax. We were discredited. No one would listen. One by one it took us. Not all at once, slowly, over months. We'd wake up and find a friend missing, their house empty, their bed unslept in. No struggle, no signs, just gone. I think it's collecting us, using us, learning to be human, or learning how to destroy us. There's a way to stop it, I think. The old stories, the ones the locals tell, they say it fears running water, that it can't cross running water, that the sound confuses it. I tried it. I found a stream, built my shack beside it. It works. It won't come within 50 yards of moving water. It circles, watches, but it won't cross. But I can't leave. The woods are too big, the stream's too few. I'm trapped here waiting, hoping someone will find this, hoping someone will believe. Don't try to kill it, don't try to capture it, just run, find water, cross it, and never come back. The journal ended there. The final entry was dated October 1987. Running water, Havoc said. That's it, that's the weakness. It's something, Reaper said. The shack is near a stream. We passed it on the way in. If we can reach it, cross it. Then what? Doc asked. We just run away, leave Ghost, leave whatever's left of the advance team. We survive, Reaper said. We get back to civilization. We bring back people who know what they're doing. This is beyond us. We were sent to capture an animal. This is something else. It's not an animal, Vex said quietly. It's not even a cryptid. It's like a force of nature, something that exists because people believe in it, fear it. Then we stop believing, Reaper said. We treat it like what it is, a threat to be avoided, not engaged. We get to that stream, we cross it, and we don't look back. They gathered their gear, moving silently, preparing to run. The shack felt safe, protected by the circle of stones, by the proximity to running water. But they couldn't stay. The creature was patient. It could wait them out. Reaper led them out the back, away from the door where Ghost had stood, toward the sound of water. The stream was close, 50 yards, maybe less. They could hear it now, rushing over stones, the sound of safety. They were halfway there when the trees moved. Not fell, moved. The trunks bending, roots tearing from the ground, branches reaching like arms. The forest was alive, reshaping itself, blocking their path. It knows, Vex gasped. It knows what we're trying to do. Then we go through, Reaper ordered. Fire, burn a path. Havoc unslung his flamethrower, the heavy weapon awkward but necessary. He triggered it, and a jet of fire cut through the darkness, setting the living trees ablaze. They screamed. Not the trees, something else, from everywhere. The sound of burning, of dying, of pain so vast it transcended species. Move, Reaper shouted. They ran through the flames, through the gap Havoc had created, feeling the heat, smelling the smoke. Behind them the trees were falling, the fire spreading, but ahead. The stream, they could see it now, silver in the moonlight, rushing over stones. Run, Reaper commanded. They ran, boots splashing, hands reaching. Reaper was first to the bank, then Doc, then Vex. Havoc was behind them, covering the rear when he stumbled. A root had risen from the earth, wrapped around his ankle, pulling him down. Havoc, Vex turned back. Go, Havoc was firing, his rifle on full auto, shredding the root but not releasing it. Get across, I'll cover. We're not leaving you. That's an order. Something moved in the fire behind them. Something tall and pale, walking through the flames without burning. Ghost's face, but wrong now, melting, reforming. The creature's true face emerging from the mask. Go, Havoc whispered, now. He raised his rifle, firing at the creature, not to kill but to delay. The bullet struck home, punching holes in pale flesh that closed almost instantly. But the creature paused, hesitated, and that was enough. Reaper grabbed Vex, dragged her across the stream, pulled Doc with him. They stumbled onto the far bank, turning back to see. Havoc, still firing, the creature looming over him. It reached down, placed a hand on his head, and Havoc's body went limp. Havoc. The creature looked up, met Reaper's eyes across the water. It smiled, and Havoc's face was gone, replaced by something older, something that had never been human. One more, it said, its voice a chorus now, Ghost and Havoc and others, dozens, hundreds. One more for my collection. It dragged Havoc's body back into the flames, and they were gone. Reaper stood on the bank, his fists clenched, wanting to charge back, to fight, to die if necessary. But he had 2 people left, 2 people depending on him, and the creature couldn't cross the water. They were safe, for now. We need to move, he said, his voice hollow. It can't cross, but it can go around, follow the stream, find civilization. What about Havoc? Doc asked. What about Ghost? They're gone. Reaper started walking, forcing his legs to move. And if we don't move, we'll join them. They followed the stream, 3 survivors out of 5, leaving the burning woods behind them. Behind them, the creature howled, not in anger but in joy. It had fed. It had collected, and soon it would collect again. Dawn was still hours away, and the woods were very, very dark. Chapter 4. They walked for hours, following the stream as it wound through the forest. The water was their only guide, their only protection. The creature couldn't cross it, but it could watch from the banks, and they felt its eyes on them, patient and hungry. The night was endless. The moon crossed the sky, the stars wheeled overhead, and still they walked. No civilization, no roads, no sign of the human world, just trees and water and the watching dark. "Where are we?" Vex asked, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "We should have reached the road by now. Bray Road. It's supposed to be here." "It's not," Reaper said. "The woods are wrong. We've been walking in circles." "How is that possible? We followed the stream." "The stream is wrong too." Reaper knelt by the water, studying it. "Look, the current is flowing upstream." They looked. He was right. The water was flowing backward, defying gravity, defying logic. "It's not possible," Doc whispered. "None of this is possible, but it's happening." Reaper stood, scanning the trees. "It's doing this, changing the rules, making the world fit its needs." "Then how do we escape?" "We don't," Reaper said. "Not until we understand what it wants." "It wants us," Vex said. "It wants to wear us, to collect us, to learn from us." "But why go through all this? If it's as powerful as it seems, why not just take us? Why the games, the chase?" "Because it's bored," Doc said quietly. "Because it's been here for decades, maybe centuries, and it's bored." They looked at him. "Think about it," Doc continued. "It's intelligent. It can speak, plan, manipulate, but it's trapped here, in these woods. It can't leave. So it plays games, collects people, studies them, wears them. It's the only entertainment it has." "Then we stop entertaining it," Reaper said. "We refuse to play." "How?" "By not running, by not fearing, by being boring." They sat by the stream, refusing to move. The creature watched from the trees, visible now, not bothering to hide. It wore Ghost's face mostly, but pieces of Havoc were there too, and others. Features blended together into a mask that was almost human but deeply wrong. "Why have you stopped?" it asked, its voice curious. "The chase is half the fun." "We're done playing," Reaper said. "Take us or don't. We're not running anymore." The creature tilted its head. "Interesting. You're trying to bluff, to make yourselves unappealing. It won't work. I've been doing this for a very long time. I know what humans are. I know what you want." "Then tell us," Reaper said. "What do we want?" "To live, to survive, to go home." The creature smiled, Ghost's smile twisted into something predatory. "And you'll do anything to achieve that, including sacrificing each other." "We won't sacrifice each other." "No, then why did you leave Havoc behind? Why did you let Ghost be taken? You could have saved them, you chose not to." "We made choices," Reaper said. "Hard choices, but we didn't sacrifice them. They were taken." "Semantics." The creature stepped closer to the stream, stopping at the water's edge. It couldn't cross, they knew that now, but it could reach. Long arms, longer than they looked, fingers tipped with black claws that clicked together. "You're all the same. Soldiers, scientists, civilians. You think you're different, but you're not. You're all meat, all prey, all potential masks." "Then why talk to us?" Vex asked. "If we're just prey, why bother with conversation?" "Because you're interesting." The creature's eyes glowed brighter, the yellow intensifying. "You're the first ones to try to trap me, to study me. Most run, most scream, most die quickly, but you're trying to understand." "We are trying to understand," Reaper said. "Help us, tell us what you are." "I'm the forest." The creature spread its arms, and the trees seemed to lean toward it as if listening. "I'm the things that hunt in the dark. I'm the fear that kept your ancestors in their caves. I'm older than your gods, older than your science, older than your comprehension. But you're trapped here, in these woods. The creature's expression flickered. I have a territory like any predator. No, you have a prison. Reaper stood, facing the creature across the water. Something happened here, something that bound you to this place. You're not choosing to stay, you can't leave. Silence. That's why you collect people. That's why you wear their faces. You're trying to understand how to escape, how to be human enough to leave. I said silence. The creature lunged, its claws raking the air inches from Reaper's face. But the stream stopped it, the water creating a barrier it couldn't cross. You know nothing. You're meat, prey, nothing more. Then why are you angry? Reaper asked. If I'm wrong, why do you care? The creature stared at him, its borrowed face cycling through expressions: rage, confusion, sorrow, fear. Finally, it settled on something that might have been resignation. The hoaxers, it said quietly, the ones who confessed, they summoned me, not intentionally. They didn't know what they were doing, but they called me. They wore my shape, told my story, and they called me into being. They created you. They shaped me, gave me form. Before that I was, diffuse, potential, the fear in the woods, the shadow in the dark, but they made me real, made me solid, made me this. It looked at its hands, Ghost's hands, Havoc's hands, the skin rippling. And they bound me to this place, to these woods, to the stories that created me. You're a tulpa, Vex breathed. A thought form, created by collective belief. Call me what you want. It doesn't change what I am. The creature sat on the bank, its long legs folding beneath it. I can't leave because the stories can't leave. I'm defined by Bray Road, by the beast, by the fear. If the stories spread, if people stop believing, if they forget, I fade, I die. So you maintain the legend, Reaper said. By killing, by appearing, by keeping the fear alive. It's not killing, it's recycling. The people I take, their fear becomes my sustenance. Their faces become my masks. Their memories become my thoughts. I'm not destroying them, I'm preserving them. You're consuming them. Same thing. The creature stood again, stretching, its joints popping. But now you know, now you understand, and understanding changes nothing. It changes everything, Reaper said. If you're a thought form, you're vulnerable, not to bullets, not to fire, but to belief, to story, to the very thing that created you. You think you can unmake me, with words, with disbelief, the creature laughed, that wet, drowning sound. I've survived decades of skeptics. I grow stronger every year. More sightings, more stories, more fear. I'm not going anywhere. Maybe not, but we can stop feeding you. Reaper turned to his team. Don't fear it, don't run, don't give it what it wants, just be. They sat on the bank facing the creature, refusing to play its game. The minutes stretched into hours. The creature watched them, waiting, hungry. But they didn't move, didn't react, didn't fear. And slowly, the creature began to fade. Not much, just slightly. The edges of Ghost's face growing less defined, the glow in its eyes dimming. What are you doing? It asked, and for the first time there was uncertainty in its voice. Nothing, Reaper said. We're doing nothing, and that's the one thing you can't survive. No, the creature stepped back away from the stream. This isn't possible, you can't. You can't just stop believing. We can, we are. The creature turned, looking into the woods as if searching for something. I need the chase, the fear, the stories. Without them. You fade, Doc said. You become what you were before, potential, nothing. No, the creature lunged again, but its movements were slower now, less coordinated. I am real, I am here, I am the Beast of Bary Road. You were, Reaper said, until we stopped believing. The creature screamed, a sound that wasn't human, wasn't animal, was just pain and loss and fear of its own. It thrashed, clawed at the air, but its form was dissolving now, Ghost's features melting, Havoc's features blending, becoming something indistinct, something that couldn't hold its shape. Please, it whispered, Don't let me go, I don't want to be nothing. Then be something else, Vex said. Not a monster, not a killer, just exist, without the fear, without the stories. That's not, I can't. The creature's voice was fading, becoming distant. I'm scared, I'm so scared. Everyone is, Reaper said. That's what makes us human. The creature looked at him, really looked, and for a moment Reaper saw something in its eyes. Not hunger, not rage, just loneliness. The loneliness of something that had never been human, trying to understand what it meant to be. Thank you, it whispered, and then it was gone. The woods changed. The trees straightened, the stream began flowing the right way, the sky lightened with the first hint of dawn. The oppressive darkness lifted, the sense of wrongness fading. And in the distance they heard it, civilization, cars, a road. It's over, Doc said. It's really over. Not over, Reaper corrected. Just paused, it'll come back. When someone else tells the story, when someone else fears, it always comes back. Then what do? We remember. Reaper stood, stretching his stiff muscles. We remember what it was, what it wanted, and we tell the truth, not the monster story, the real story, about loneliness and fear and trying to be human. Will that stop it? No, but it might change it, make it something less terrible, something that doesn't need to kill to exist. They found the road an hour later. A farmer in a pickup stopped for them, staring at their tattered uniforms and haunted faces. They called for extraction, reported mission complete, didn't mention the thought form or the collected faces or the thing that wore their friends. The debriefing was long and thorough. They told their story, all of it, and were met with skepticism, then concern, then classification. The mission was sealed, the files locked away, the truth buried under layers of secrecy. But Reaper kept his own notes. He wrote the real story, the true story, and he sent it to people who would understand. Cryptozoologists, parapsychologists, the few who knew that the world was bigger than science could explain. And he visited the site every year, Bray Road, the ditch, the woods. He stood by the stream where they'd faced the creature and he spoke to it, told it stories, not scary ones, stories about belonging, about connection, about being human. He never saw it again, but sometimes in the corner of his vision he thought he saw movement, a shape in the trees, a shadow that moved like a friend. Maybe it was listening, maybe it was learning, maybe someday it would understand. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, a hiker found Reaper's dog tags nailed to a tree deep in the woods where the creature had been. The chain was new, the tags unweathered. Someone or something had placed them there deliberately. The hiker called 911, sobbing about eyes in the branches, about something watching from the treetops. The sheriff came, took the report, burned it. Some things Wisconsin keeps. But in the years that followed, the sightings changed. The Beast of Bary Road was still seen, still feared, but now there were stories of protection too. Of a tall figure in the woods watching over lost hikers, of strange help in times of danger, of a guardian rather than a killer. The stories spread, the fear lessened, and the creature, whatever it was, seemed to change with them, less hungry, more present, more real in a different way. Reaper retired not long after. He moved to Wisconsin, built a cabin near the woods, and spent his days telling stories. True stories, human stories, stories of connection and belonging. And sometimes, late at night, he heard humming, old songs half remembered, and he smiled because he knew he wasn't alone. The woods were dark, but they weren't empty, and that was okay. The end. The Loveland Covenant. Prologue. The cruiser went into the water at 3:17 a.m., March 3, 1972. Officer Raymond Matthews had been on patrol along the Little Miami River, responding to a possible B&E at the Loveland Shopping Center, when his radio transmission cut to static. What remained of his broadcast would haunt the department for 50 years. "Oh God, using the wands. His body was never found. The Ford Custom 500 was recovered 3 weeks later, hauled from the murky depths by a salvage crew working the river bend near Miamiville Road. The windshield was shattered from the inside out, shards protruding like frozen screams. The dashcam, newly installed as part of a pilot program, survived the water damage, protected by a watertight housing that no one in 1972 thought to check. It sat in an evidence locker for 44 years. When Lieutenant James Teller finally digitized the magnetic tape in 2016, what he saw made him retire 2 years early. The footage showed Matthews parked on River Road, spotlights sweeping the tree line. Something moved in the underbrush. The camera caught a glimpse: pale, wrinkled skin, elongated head, eyes like wet obsidian reflecting in the beam. Then it stood up. 4 feet tall, humanoid but wrong, arms too long, legs too short, torso compressed like something born to crushing depths. In its 3-fingered hand, it held what appeared to be a metal rod. When the thing raised the object, the camera feed erupted in electromagnetic snow. Through the static, Matthews could be heard screaming. The last image before the tape corrupted, a second figure emerging from the water behind the cruiser, a third, a fourth. They weren't alone. Chapter 1: The Frogman Festival. Isla Vasquez hated Ohio before she even stepped off the plane. The Cincinnati skyline looked like a mouthful of broken teeth against the gray March sky, all rusted bridges and industrial decay. She'd flown coach from JFK, her editor's parting words still ringing in her ears. "Give me something sensational, Vasquez. You've got one last chance to prove you're not completely radioactive." Radioactive. That was the word they'd used when they pulled her off the Cartwright investigation. When the pharmaceutical company's lawyers finished shredding her reputation, she'd been left with nothing but a non-disclosure agreement and a reputation for being difficult. Difficult meant she didn't back down. Difficult meant she asked questions that made powerful people uncomfortable. Now she was covering a cryptid festival. The Uber driver, a bored college student with a vape pen that smelled like synthetic mango, eyed her camera bag in the rearview mirror. "Here for the Frogman thing." "Here to write about it," Isla said, her voice carefully neutral. "You a believer?" "I'm a journalist." The driver snorted. "That's not what I asked." No, it wasn't. But Isla had learned that how you answered questions mattered more than what you said. She'd spent 5 years at the Times learning that lesson, another 3 watching it all burn down. The Frogman Festival was beneath her. It was a joke, a tourist trap, a sleepy Ohio town's desperate attempt to monetize a 50-year-old urban legend. She was going to tear it apart. The town of Loveland materialized through the drizzle like a watercolor painting left in the rain. Victorian storefronts lined the main drag, their facades painted in optimistic pastels that had faded to melancholy. Banners stretched across the street announcing the annual Frogman Festival, featuring a cartoonish green creature in a sweater vest holding a shopping bag. The real legend, if you could call it that, was far less marketable. 1955, 2 teenagers reported seeing a reptilian creature along the Miami River. 1972, police officer Ray Matthews allegedly encountered humanoid frogs armed with wands. 2016, a local student posted a video claiming to show the creature. It got 3 million views before being debunked as a hoax. That was it. That was the Loveland Frogman. Isla checked into the Loveland Inn, a bed-and breakfast that smelled of lavender and old money, and spent her first evening organizing her attack. The festival ran Friday through Sunday, featuring costume contests, a cryptid parade, and lectures by experts who'd never published a peer-reviewed paper in their lives. She would attend, observe, and dismantle. By Sunday, she'd have enough material for a devastating takedown. The town that lied to itself, how Loveland built an economy on childhood monsters. She slept poorly, haunted by dreams of drowning. Chapter 2: The Missing Boy. The festival kicked off with a pancake breakfast in the municipal building basement. Isla arrived early, camera ready, determined to capture the absurdity in high definition. What she found instead was heartbreaking in its earnestness. Elderly couples in matching Frogman t-shirts. Children clutching plush toys of the creature, their faces painted with green scales. Local business owners, too many to be in on a conspiracy, who spoke of the Frogman with the casual reverence most people reserved for Santa Claus. "My grandfather saw it," said Doris Chen, who ran the Historical Society booth. She was 70 if she was a day, her white hair pinned back with butterfly clips. 1956, down by the river, said it stood on the bank and watched him fish for an hour. Never moved, just watched. Isla made a show of taking notes, and you believe him. Doris smiled, but her eyes were sharp. I believe he saw something that scared him enough that he never fished that stretch again, and he loved fishing. The 2016 video was playing on a loop at the media station, and Isla forced herself to watch it 3 times. The footage was shaky, filmed by a teenage boy named Tyler Perkins on a GoPro camera strapped to his chest. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., March 15. Perkins claimed he'd been walking his dog near the river when he heard splashing. The video showed the tree line, then the water's edge. Something pale moved in the darkness. The camera jerked, Perkins running, breathing hard. When he stopped, the thing was gone. In its place, on a flat rock near the waterline, sat a metal rod. "The wand," the festival narrator explained. "Recovered by police and kept in evidence storage for 3 years before being returned to the Perkins family. They donated it to our museum." Isla found the wand in a glass case near the snack table. It was 12 inches of tarnished copper, wrapped in what looked like dried sinew. The ends were capped with silver rings, pitted with corrosion. It looked like something from a Renaissance fair, not a monster's arsenal. But it was the metadata that stopped her cold. Isla had pulled strings, old sources, favors owed, to get access to the original video file. Late Friday night, in her hotel room, she ran it through forensic analysis software on her laptop. The program was designed to detect digital manipulation, but what it found was something else entirely. Electromagnetic spikes, 4 distinct surges, precisely timed to when the creature sparked its wand in the video. The spikes shouldn't have been there. They weren't in the audio track. They were embedded in the file's data layer, as if the camera itself had been affected. As if something had interfered with the electronics. Isla stared at the readings until her eyes watered. The spikes formed a pattern almost rhythmic. 4 bursts, then pause. 4 bursts, then pause. It looked almost like communication. She was still staring when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're looking at the wrong thing. Meet me at Matthew's bar. Come alone." Chapter 3: The Partner. Matthew's bar occupied the ground floor of a converted Victorian on West Loveland Avenue. The sign outside featured a frog in a police uniform tipping its hat, which Isla suspected was meant to be charming but felt grotesque. Inside, the atmosphere was pure dive, dim lighting, sticky floors, and the permanent smell of spilled beer and broken dreams. She spotted him immediately. A man in his 60s, unshaven, nursing what looked like whiskey and regret at the far corner table. He wore a faded Loveland PD windbreaker, the logo cracked and peeling. "Mark Harrison," he said as she sat down. "Ray Matthews was my partner." Isla activated her recorder, placing it openly on the table between them. "You said I was looking at the wrong thing." Harrison laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "The video, the wand, the festival, it's all misdirection." He leaned forward and Isla caught the full force of his breath, alcohol and desperation. "You want to know what really happened to Ray, what really happens in this town? I want to know why you contacted me." "Because you're the only one asking the right questions." Harrison's hand trembled as he raised his glass. Everyone else they want to believe. They want the story, the monster, the tourism dollars. But you want to tear it down. And that means you might actually see what's in front of you. He set down the glass and pulled a folded photograph from his jacket pocket. Isla unfolded it carefully. A color photo, faded with age, showing two men in police uniforms standing beside a cruiser. The date stamp read March 2, 1972. That's Ray on the left, that's his car, the one they pulled from the river. Isla studied the image. The cruiser looked ordinary, but something about the background made her pause. Through the window, barely visible, she could make out the river, and on the bank, something small and pale. There, Harrison said, tapping the photo with a yellowed fingernail. You see it. Something on the shore. Not on the shore, in the water, watching. Harrison's voice dropped to a whisper. Ray saw them that night, March 2nd. We were on patrol and he spotted something near the River Road Bridge. We stopped. He got out with his flashlight and they just stared at each other. Three of them standing in the shallows. Harrison's eyes were unfocused, lost in memory. I told him to get back in the car. I told him we should call it in, get back up, but Ray, he was curious. He always was. He walked right down to the water's edge. And they didn't run, they didn't attack, they just observed him like scientists studying a lab rat. Harrison drained his glass. Ray came back shaking, said they held up those sticks, the wands, and the air smelled like ozone, like before a lightning storm. He said they were trying to communicate. Communicate how? Harrison laughed again, but there were tears in his eyes. That's the hell of it, we never found out. Because the next night Ray went back alone, and whatever they said to him, it was enough to make him drive his cruiser into the river, willingly. He pushed the photo toward her. Look at the window, Ms. Vasquez. Look at what's reflected in the glass. Isla held the photo to the dim light. In the cruiser's rear window, she could see the river's surface. And in that reflection, standing in the water behind the two officers, she counted 5 distinct shapes. They were all looking at the camera. Chapter 4, The Mound. Isla didn't sleep that night. She sat in her hotel room, the photo spread across her laptop screen alongside the 2016 video, the 1972 dashcam footage, and every scrap of documentation she'd compiled. The shapes refused to resolve into anything recognizable, yet they were unmistakably there, watching. She called her editor at 6 a.m., New York time. Vasquez, this better be. I need more time, and I need access to the historical archives. A pause, the cryptid story. I thought you were going to demolish it. There's something here, Marcus, something real. Define real. Isla looked at the photo on her screen. The pale figures in the water, the electromagnetic spikes, the way Ray Matthews had apparently driven himself into the river after encountering them. I don't know yet, but I think the town knows. I think they've always known. Marcus sighed. You have 5 days. Give me something I can use, or you're writing festival puff pieces for the next year. The Loveland Historical Society opened at 9 a.m. Doris Chen greeted her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Back so soon. Did you enjoy the parade? I need to see everything you have on the Shawnee, the original inhabitants. The smile vanished. That's not really our area of expertise. It's everyone's area of expertise who lived here before 1750. Isla stepped closer, lowering her voice. I know about the mound, Ms. Chen. I know about the tunnel. She was bluffing, but the bluff landed. Doris's face went pale. The drainage tunnel on Miamiville Road, Isla pressed. The one that collapsed in 1987 and was never repaired. The one with the mural. Doris looked around the empty room, then grabbed Isla's arm with surprising strength. Not here, not where people can see. She led Isla through a door marked staff only into a cluttered office that smelled of mold and old paper. File cabinets lined every wall, their drawers labeled in faded ink. FLOODS, industry, founding families the others. The Shawnee called them Hocklesqua, Doris said, pulling a leather-bound journal from a locked drawer. The frog people. They said they lived in the river before the river existed, in underground seas that connected to the surface through sacred springs. She opened the journal to a page of meticulous handwriting, the ink brown with age. This is a translation by Reverend Thomas Blackwood, 1843. He was a missionary who actually listened to the people he was supposed to convert. Isla read aloud, "The frog people do not die as we do. They shed their skins and sleep in the deep waters. When they hunger, they rise to trade. Their lightning, found in stones that fell from heaven, stuns their prey. They drag the stunned into the depths, where the prey wakes to find themselves changed." Changed how? Doris turned the page, revealing a crude sketch. Human figures with elongated heads, webbed hands, glistening skin. The Shawnee believed the frog people didn't eat their victims. They recruited them, transformed them. That's, Isla stopped herself. She'd been about to say impossible. But after the photo, after the electromagnetic readings, after Ray Matthews driving himself into the water, she wasn't sure what was possible anymore. "The mural," Doris continued. "You mentioned the mural. It was painted by a Shawnee artist in 1798 after the last known swarming." She pulled another folder, this one containing photographs. "The town sealed the tunnel in 1987, supposedly because of structural instability. But I was there when they did it. I saw what was on the walls." The photographs showed a cylindrical drainage tunnel, its concrete walls covered in pigment that had somehow survived centuries of moisture. The mural depicted a village at night, simple structures, cooking fires, families sleeping. And emerging from the river, dozens of pale figures wielding glowing rods. The villagers weren't running. They weren't fighting. They were standing, arms raised as if in welcome. Or surrender. "The Shawnee didn't fear them," Doris whispered. "They respected them. They made offerings, animals sometimes, other times." "Other times what?" Doris met her eyes. The diseased, the elderly, those who would not be missed. It was a covenant, Ms. Vasquez, a trade, food for peace. The frog people stayed in the deep, and the Shawnee lived unmolested on the surface. Until the white settlers came. Until someone broke the covenant. Doris gathered the materials, her hands shaking. "There's a reason the first frogman sightings coincide with the founding of Loveland, Ms. Vasquez. There's a reason the town was built here, why the wealthy families stayed even when industry collapsed." "Why?" "Because they learned." Doris locked the drawer with a key she wore around her neck. "They learned that the frog people could be managed, controlled, if you gave them what they wanted." "And what do they want?" Doris didn't answer. She was staring at the window where something pale had moved in the garden outside. When Isla turned to look, there was nothing there. But when she turned back, Doris was crying. "Get out of Loveland, Ms. Vasquez. Write your story about the festival, about the hoaxes, about the silly town that believes in monsters. But don't dig deeper. Don't go to the river. Don't let them see you watching." "Why?" "Because they remember." Doris wiped her eyes. "They remember everyone who sees them, and sooner or later they always collect what they're owed." Chapter 5. The Widow. Robert Honeycutt was the first person to photograph the Loveland Frogman. Not the blurry 1972 Polaroid that everyone had seen. That was actually Ray Matthews, developed from a camera found in his glove compartment. No, Honeycutt's photos were different, clearer, closer. Taken on the night of March 4, 1972, the day after Matthews disappeared. Honeycutt had been a biology teacher at Loveland High School, an amateur naturalist who spent his weekends cataloging local wildlife. According to the official story, he'd gone to the river to document the flood damage from recent storms and had encountered a large reptile that startled him into dropping his camera. The camera was never recovered. Neither was Honeycutt. His widow, Eleanor Honeycutt, still lived in the same bungalow on Fairhaven Drive, surrounded by her husband's books and the silence of 50 years of unanswered questions. She was 93, Isla's research revealed, and she had never spoken to a journalist. Until now. "Doris Chen called me," Eleanor said when she opened the door. "She said you weren't like the others, that you actually listened." "I try to." Eleanor's living room was a museum to a life interrupted. Robert's desk sat in the corner, still covered with his papers, grading he never finished, notes he never organized. A photo on the mantel showed a handsome man in his 30s, holding a turtle and grinning at the camera. "He loved this town," Eleanor said, settling into a recliner that had molded to her shape over decades. "He loved the river. He used to say there were species down there we hadn't even imagined yet." "Is that why he went to the river that night?" Eleanor's expression hardened. "He went because Ray Matthews was his friend, because Ray had told him something that scared him, something about the things in the water, and Robert didn't believe him. He thought Ray had snapped. He thought he could prove his friend was hallucinating." "What happened?" "What always happens when men don't believe." Eleanor reached into her cardigan pocket and withdrew a key, small, brass, attached to a leather cord. "Robert kept a journal, everything he saw, everything he learned. He brought it back to me that night before he went back to the river. He said if anything happened to him, I should burn it." "Did you?" Eleanor looked at the key in her palm. "Not yet." The journal was in a safe deposit box at the First National Bank of Loveland. Eleanor had never opened it in 50 years, had never read a word of her husband's final thoughts. Now, with trembling hands, she unlocked the box and withdrew a leather-bound notebook, its pages swollen with moisture damage. "He came home soaking wet," she whispered. "Soaking wet in March. Said he'd fallen in the river, but his clothes weren't muddy, just wet, and he was smiling, laughing almost. He said he'd seen them, finally seen them, and they were beautiful." Isla opened the journal to the final entry, dated March 4, 1972. The handwriting was Robert's, but the words were like nothing she'd ever seen. "They don't eat us, they don't kill us, they transform us. The wands aren't weapons, they're keys, keys to a door that opens in the water. Ray understood. Ray went through the door, and tonight I'm going to join him." Below the entry in a different ink, someone had added, "Eleanor, forgive me. The water is calling and I must answer." Isla looked up to find Eleanor holding a lighter to the journal. "What are you?" "They came to me, Ms. Vasquez, 3 nights after Robert disappeared. They stood in my garden holding their wands and they showed me." The lighter flame danced, reflecting in Eleanor's tears. "They showed me Robert in the water, smiling, young again, happy." "Mrs. Honeycutt, please." "They said I could join him, any time. All I had to do was go to the river. All I had to do was let them take me." The flame caught the dry paper, spreading fast. "And I've been tempted, Ms. Vasquez. God help me, I've been tempted every day for 50 years." The journal burned in an ashtray, pages curling, Robert's final words turning to ash. "I burn this so I won't be tempted anymore," Eleanor whispered. "I burn this so I can die as a human being in my own bed, not as whatever they would make me." She turned to Isla, her face streaked with soot and tears. "But I won't stop you from going to the river. I won't stop you from seeing what Robert saw, because maybe someone needs to know. Maybe someone needs to understand that they're not killing us." "Then what are they doing?" Eleanor smiled, and it was the most terrible thing Isla had ever seen. "They're saving us," she said, "from ourselves." The doorbell rang. Eleanor's smile vanished. "You need to leave now." "But they know you're here." Eleanor grabbed Isla's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "They know you've been asking questions, and they're curious about you." The The doorbell rang again. 3 short rings, pause, 3 short rings. Go out the back, Elena whispered, pressing the safe deposit key into Isla's hand. Run to your car. Don't look at the river. Don't stop until you're out of Loveland. What about you? Elena's smile returned, peaceful now. I'm old, Miss Vasquez. I'm tired, and the water is so very warm. Isla ran. She made it to her rental car, heart pounding, and didn't stop driving until she reached the highway. In her rearview mirror, she saw Elena Honeycott's house, dark and silent. And in the garden, standing beside the birdbath, something small and pale watched her go. Chapter 6. The Reeds. Isla spent the night in a motel outside Cincinnati, chain-smoking cigarettes she didn't know she still had and staring at the key Elena had given her. The safe deposit box at First National. What else was in there? What had Elena been keeping for 50 years? She called Marcus at 8 a.m. Vasquez, where the hell? I need a forensic document specialist, someone who can work with water-damaged materials. You find something? I think I found everything. Isla lit another cigarette, her hands shaking. Marcus, this isn't a cryptid story. This is. I don't know what this is, but it's real. Something is happening in this town, something that's been happening for centuries, and I need to prove it. Prove what? That there are frog monsters in Ohio. That something is in the river, something intelligent, something that's been interacting with this town for generations. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You sound like you've lost your mind. I know what I sound like, but I've seen the photos, Marcus. I've seen the electromagnetic readings. I've talked to people who have nothing to gain and everything to lose. She crushed out her cigarette. Something killed Ray Matthews in 1972. Something killed Robert Honeycott. And whatever it is, it's still there. So what do you want to do? I want to film it. She returned to Loveland on Sunday morning, the last day of the Frogman Festival. The streets were crowded with tourists in costume, children clutching plush toys, vendors selling fried food and overpriced souvenirs. Isla moved through them like a ghost, her camera bag heavy on her shoulder. She wasn't here for the festival anymore. She drove to the river. The little Miami River wound through Ohio like a scar, its waters brown and slow, carrying the sediment of centuries. Isla parked at the public access point near Miamiville Road, the same spot where Ray Matthews had died, and set up her equipment. Professional camera on tripod, infrared attachment, electromagnetic field detector, audio recorder, night vision. If something was out there, she would document it. The afternoon passed in silence. Fishermen came and went, casting lines into the murky water. Joggers ran the riverside trail, earphones drowning out the world. Children threw rocks, the splashes echoing like gunshots. Nothing unusual. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges, Isla reviewed her footage. The river looked ordinary, almost boring, but her M detector registered faint fluctuations, not spikes like in the 2016 video, but rhythmic pulses, almost like a heartbeat. She aimed her infrared camera at the water and gasped. In the grayscale display, the river's surface showed temperature variations she couldn't see with her naked eye. Warm spots moving against the current. Not fish, too large, too deliberate. Something was swimming beneath the surface, something that generated its own heat. The M detector spiked. Isla swung her camera toward the reeds, where the sensor indicated the strongest reading. At first, she saw nothing but cattails and shadow. Then, as her eyes adjusted, she made out a shape. It stood 4 feet tall, humanoid but wrong. Arms too long, hanging to its knees. Head elongated, eyes too large and reflecting her camera's infrared beam like cat's eyes. Skin that looked like wet leather, pale and mottled. It was watching her. Isla's hands trembled on the camera controls. The creature didn't move, didn't approach. It simply observed her with an intelligence that was unmistakable. Those eyes, wet, black, ancient, seemed to hold something like curiosity. Then it raised its hand. In its three-fingered grip, it held a metal rod, the wand. The air smelled like ozone. Isla's camera feed erupted in static. Her M detector screamed, readings off the charts, 4 distinct spikes in rapid succession. The audio recorder captured something that made her blood run cold, a sound like clicking, like snapping, like language spoken underwater. Through the static, she saw the creature tilt its head. It was studying her. Then it turned and walked into the river, disappearing beneath the surface without a splash. The equipment went dead. Isla sat in the darkening silence, her heart hammering against her ribs. When she checked her footage, the files were corrupted, all except for 3 seconds of video showing the creature raising its wand. The timestamp showed it had been recording for 17 minutes. She'd only seen it for 30 seconds. Chapter 7. The Sheriff. Sheriff David Crow had been waiting for her at the station. Isla was still shaking when she walked through the doors, her camera bag clutched to her chest like a shield. The desk sergeant barely looked up, but Crow emerged from his office immediately, his face carefully neutral. "Ms. Vasquez, I was hoping we could talk." He was younger than she expected, late 40s, athletic build, with the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much. His office was spare, dominated by a map of Loveland Township and a framed photo of him with an older man she recognized from her research. "Is that Sheriff Teller?" Crow's jaw tightened. "My predecessor, my mentor. The one who digitized the Matthews footage. The one who tried to tell the truth and was destroyed for it." Crow closed the door, then turned to face her. "You were at the river tonight. I know because we've been monitoring the electromagnetic signatures for 40 years. Every time they activate, we know." "You know about them?" "I know enough to keep my mouth shut and my people safe." Crow gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Ms. Vasquez. Let me tell you about the town you're trying to expose." She sat, her camera bag in her lap. Loveland was founded in 1796 by a man named John Loveland. He was a fur trader, but that was a cover. His real business was recruitment. Recruitment for what? For them. Crow leaned against his desk, his arms crossed. The Shawnee had a covenant with the frog people, food in exchange for peace. When white settlers arrived, some of them saw the arrangement and decided it was worth continuing. "You mean human sacrifice?" "I mean practical arrangements between species." Crow's voice was flat. "The frog people don't hunt randomly. They don't take children from playgrounds or fishermen from their boats. They take what's given to them, and in exchange, they don't swarm." Swarm. March 1955. The first modern sighting. 2 teenagers saw a creature along the river and told everyone. The town panicked. People stopped going near the water. And the frog people, they got hungry. Crow pulled a file from his desk drawer. Old, yellowed, stamped, classified in red ink. On the night of March 7, 1955, something emerged from the river. Not one creature. Dozens. They moved through the town systematically, taking people from their homes, from their beds. By morning, 14 people were missing. How is this not covered up? It was. The missing were declared runaways, drifters, victims of an unspecified crime wave. The town buried the truth and moved on. Crow opened the file, revealing grainy black and white photos. Bodies, or what was left of them, recovered from the river. The images were disturbing, not eaten, not mutilated, but changed. Skin pale and wrinkled, fingers elongated, gills faint but visible on their necks. "These were found in 1956, Crow said, after the town started making offerings again." "What kind of offerings?" "Animals, livestock, and volunteers." Crow met her eyes. "The 1955 businessman everyone talks about. He wasn't a businessman. He was a biologist named Dr. Herbert Wainwright, sent by the government to investigate reports of mutated amphibians. He found more than he bargained for. And he became an offering. Crow closed the file. The town chose him. He was an outsider asking too many questions. They drove him to the river and left him there. The creatures took him and the swarm stopped. Isla felt sick. The child, the one who disappeared. Crow nodded. That was 1955. Billy Matthews, age 7. His father was one of the men who tried to stop the offerings. The creatures took Billy as punishment, message, whatever you want to call it. And his father took his own life a year later, couldn't live with what he'd done. What you'd made him do. Crow's expression didn't change. We do what we must to survive, Ms. Vasquez. The frog people have been here longer than humans. They'll be here after we're gone. Our choice is whether to coexist or be consumed. That's not coexistence, that's slavery. Then what would you have us do? Crow's voice rose, the first crack in his composure. Call in the National Guard, bomb the river. You don't understand what they are. They're not animals. They're not monsters. They're intelligent, ancient, patient. If we declare war, they won't fight us. They'll simply wait. Wait for what? For us to sleep, for us to let our guard down, and then they'll take what they want. Crow straightened, regaining his composure. That's why we have the festival, Ms. Vasquez. It's not just tourism, it's ritual, a way of acknowledging them, of showing we remember the Covenant. And the Frogman mascot, the cute merchandise. Camouflage, if we make them ridiculous, no one will believe the truth. Crow sat behind his desk, suddenly looking very tired. Your article, if you write it, will be laughed at. Another crackpot claiming to have seen monsters. And if you push too hard, if you try to expose us, I'll end up in the river. Or worse. Crow opened his desk drawer and withdrew a wand, the same type the creatures carried. They give us these, Ms. Vasquez, as gifts, as proof of the Covenant. Do you know what they do? Electromagnetic discharge. That's the scientific explanation. Crow turned the wand in his hands. The truth is they stun prey, disrupt nervous systems. The Shawnee believe they disrupted the soul, separated the body from the spirit, making transformation possible. Transformation into what? Crow didn't answer. He simply looked at her, and in his eyes, Isla saw something ancient and terrible. Go home, Ms. Vasquez. Write your cryptid piece. Mock us if you must, but don't dig deeper. Don't go back to the river. And whatever you do, don't let them mark you as a trespasser. Why would they mark me? Because you saw them, because you filmed them. Crow placed the wand back in his drawer. And because, unlike the rest of this town, you haven't decided whether you're with them or against them. Chapter 8. The Assistant. Isla found her way back to the Loveland Inn in a daze, Crow's words echoing in her mind. The town wasn't just complicit. It was complicit by design, structured around a horror it couldn't escape. The festival, the mascot, the laughing dismissal of the legend. It was all a defense mechanism, a way to survive in the shadow of something that could wipe them out. She needed help, real help. She called Ethan Brooks, her research assistant from New York. He was 24, brilliant, and socially awkward in the way that made him perfect for technical work. He'd helped her on the Cartwright investigation, and he was one of the few people who didn't blame her for how it ended. Ethan, I need you here, now. Isla, it's midnight. I know what time it is. I need someone who understands electromagnetic fields, signal processing, and isn't afraid of things that don't make sense. A pause. You found something. I found something, and I need you to help me document it before I can't. Ethan arrived Tuesday morning, red-eyed from an all-night drive, his trunk full of equipment she'd only seen in his apartment. Modified M detectors, spectrum analyzers, portable Faraday cages. He'd believed her immediately, which was either loyalty or madness. They set up a command center in her hotel room, the bed covered in laptops and cables. Isla showed him the footage, what little remained, and the M readings from the river. "This is impossible," Ethan said, staring at the data. "Explain." "The electromagnetic signature. It's not random, it's structured, like language." He pulled up a waveform on his laptop. "See these patterns, 4 distinct pulses repeated in sequences. That's not natural, that's communication. They're talking to each other. Or to us." Ethan zoomed in on the corrupted footage, using algorithms to reconstruct the damaged frames. "Isla, look at this." The reconstructed image showed the creature at the river, but clearer now. Isla could see details she'd missed in her panic. The texture of its skin, like amphibian hide stretched over bone. The way its joints bent, not quite right for a human frame. The object in its hand, not a simple rod but something more complex, with silver rings and what looked like crystalline nodes. "It's technology," Ethan breathed. "Or biology, I can't tell, but whatever it is, it's generating the M fields. The creature is the antenna." "Meaning?" "Meaning they're not just animals, Isla. They're tool users. They have devices, weapons, whatever you want to call them." Isla thought of the mural in the drainage tunnel, the Shawnee depictions of creatures wielding lightning. The Shawnee called it magic. And they weren't wrong. Ethan pulled up another file. "I ran simulations based on your M readings. If I'm right, and I think I am, these wands can generate focused electromagnetic pulses, enough to disrupt nerve impulses in mammals, stun prey, or transform them." Ethan looked at her. "Transform them into what?" She told him everything. The journal, the photos, Eleanor Honeycott's words about Robert being saved, Sheriff Crow's admission that the town made offerings. "Isla, this is insane." "I know. But the data supports it." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "If these creatures can manipulate electromagnetic fields, they could potentially affect cellular processes, genetic manipulation. The frogs in this region, there are documented mutations, polydactyly, vestigial organs. What if that's not pollution? What if that's they're breeding or converting?" Ethan pulled up a map of the Little Miami River watershed. "Look at this. Sightings of the Frogman correlate with missing persons reports going back 70 years, but not random, patterned. Always near the water, always at night, always people who were vulnerable." "Vulnerable how?" "Lonely, sick, at the end of something." Ethan highlighted a cluster of disappearances near a nursing home. 6 residents went missing between 1987 and 1995. All had terminal diagnoses. All had expressed interest in joining the river people in their final days. "They volunteered. Or were recruited." Ethan leaned back, his face pale. "Isla, what if the frog people aren't predators? What if they're missionaries?" The word hung in the air between them. "The water," Isla said slowly. "Eleanor Honeycott said the water was warm. Robert Honeycott wrote about a door that opened in the water. A portal, a gate. Or a transformation chamber." Isla stood, pacing the small room. "The missing persons aren't dead, Ethan. They're changed. The creatures aren't eating them, they're converting them. Into more of themselves." "That's biologically impossible." "Is it?" She stopped, facing him. "We don't know what these things are. We don't know where they come from. The Shawnee said they lived in underground seas before the rivers existed. What if they're not from around here? What if they're invasive? Extraterrestrial? Or terrestrial but different, older?" Isla grabbed her jacket. "Come on, we're going back to the river." "Now it's broad daylight." "Exactly. They come out at night, which means if we want to see where they come from, we need to go while they're sleeping." Chapter 9: The Cave. They found it 2 miles downstream from the public access point, where the river curved around limestone bluffs that had resisted erosion for millennia. Ethan spotted it first. A shadow in the water, too regular to be natural. There, under the surface, Isla peered through polarized sunglasses and saw it, a dark rectangle like a door just beneath the waterline, the entrance to a submerged cave. "Sonar," she said. Ethan deployed a portable sonar unit, waterproofed and battery-powered. The screen painted a picture in false color, the riverbed, the limestone walls, and a tunnel extending into darkness. "It goes back at least 200 feet, Ethan said. "Maybe more. The signal's getting fuzzy." "Can you tell if it's occupied?" "Not with this equipment." He checked his M detector. "But I'm getting faint readings, low-level like background radiation. Whatever's in there, it's been there a while." Isla stripped to her swimsuit, ignoring Ethan's protests. "Isla, you can't. Watch the surface. If you see anything at all, you blast that sonar at maximum output, scramble the signal. And if that doesn't work, run." She put on her diving mask and slipped into the water. The cold shocked her, stealing her breath. She forced herself to breathe steadily, letting her body adjust, then duck-dive toward the cave entrance. The darkness swallowed her. The tunnel was narrow, just wide enough for her to swim through without touching the walls. Her underwater flashlight cut a beam through the murk, revealing smooth stone worn by centuries of current. But the walls weren't natural. They'd been worked, shaped, carved with symbols she couldn't read. The Shawnee had been here, or someone had. She surfaced in a chamber, gasping for air. The cave was larger than she expected, a cathedral of limestone lit by her trembling flashlight. And everywhere, every surface, there were markings. Handholds carved into the walls, leading up toward a dry shelf 20 feet above the waterline. Isla climbed. The shelf was covered in bones. Not scattered, not randomly deposited, but arranged, organized. Piles of cattle skeletons, deer remains, and her heart stopped human. She forced herself to look closer. The human remains were old, some skeletal, others mummified by the cave's constant temperature. They weren't victims of violence. There were no broken bones, no signs of struggle. They looked like they'd simply lain down to die. Or to sleep. Among the bones she found objects, watches, wedding rings, a child's stuffed rabbit, rotted but recognizable. These were offerings, yes, but they were also markers, memories. The dead had been people once, with lives and families and names. And something had collected them. She was photographing the scene, proof, finally undeniable proof, when she heard the splash below. Isla froze, her flashlight beam trembling. The sound came again, wet, deliberate, something entering the water from the tunnel. They were coming back. She scrambled for the handholds, desperate to reach the water before they blocked the exit. Her fingers slipped on wet stone, her heart hammering in her ears. Below, she heard clicking, that underwater language she'd heard before, and the scrape of claws on rock. She dove. The tunnel was black, her flashlight useless in the churning water. She swam blind, arms outstretched, waiting for the impact of stone walls or worse, the grip of webbed fingers. Something brushed her leg. Isla screamed underwater, bubbles escaping her mask. She kicked harder, faster, her lungs burning. The surface seemed impossibly distant, the tunnel endless. Then light. She burst from the water, gasping, flailing, expecting to feel the sting of a wand's discharge. But instead, strong hands grabbed her shoulders, pulling her onto the muddy bank. "I got you," Ethan shouted, dragging her away from the water. "Jesus, Isla, what did you—" "Drive," she gasped. "Drive now." They didn't stop until they reached the highway, and even then, Isla kept looking in the rearview mirror, expecting to see pale shapes on the road behind them. They'd been in the cave. They'd been close enough to touch her. And they hadn't. "They let me go," she whispered. "What?" "In the tunnel, something touched my leg, but they didn't grab me, they didn't stun me." She stared at her shaking hands. They let me escape. Why? I don't know, but she was beginning to suspect. Ethan, how many people have seen them, really seen them? Dozens, hundreds. And how many have been taken? Ethan was quiet. They're selective, Isla said. They don't take everyone, they take people who fit, who are ready, the elderly, the terminally ill, the curious who won't stop digging. Like you. Like me, she laughed, and it sounded broken. But they didn't take me, they let me see the cave, they let me escape. Why? The answer came to her in Sheriff Crow's voice. They remember everyone who sees them. They weren't hunting her, they were studying her, observing her, deciding if she was worth the effort of recruitment. And the festival was tomorrow night. Chapter 10, The Trap. They spent Wednesday preparing. Ethan's equipment spread across every surface of the hotel room. M detectors calibrated to detect the specific frequency signature of the wands. Cameras shielded in Faraday cages to prevent electromagnetic interference. Audio recorders with backup batteries. If they use their wands, Ethan explained, we'll see it coming. The M spike precedes the discharge by about 3 seconds. Enough time to run. Enough time to hide. He looked at her, his eyes serious behind his glasses. Isla, are you sure about this? The festival is the worst possible place. Crowds, confusion, if they decide to do whatever they do. That's why we need to be there. She checked her camera, her third of the trip. The town needs to know the truth, and I need to prove it. Even if the truth destroys the town. She met his eyes, especially then. They drove to the festival grounds Thursday afternoon, parking on a ridge overlooking the river. The festival had transformed the riverfront into a carnival of the absurd. Tents and booths, a Ferris wheel painted with frog faces, food trucks selling frogman fritters and swamp water lemonade. Thousands of people, families, children. Isla's stomach turned. Crow was right, the festival is camouflage, but it's also bait. Bait for what? For them. She pointed to the river where the setting sun painted the water in shades of blood. The town makes offerings, but what if the offerings aren't enough? What if the creatures are hungry? The fireworks display was scheduled for 10 p.m., a grand finale to the 3-day festival. It would be the largest crowd of the weekend, thousands gathered on the riverbank, watching the sky. And their backs to the water. We need to warn people, Ethan said. And tell them what, that frog monsters are going to attack. They'll laugh us off the premises. Isla checked her M detector. No, we document, we record, we prove, and then we get people to safety. They found a position near the stage, close enough to the water to see the riverbank but surrounded enough to blend in. The crowd grew as night fell, families spreading blankets, children clutching glow sticks, the air thick with the smell of fried food and anticipation. Isla scanned the river with her night vision monocular. Nothing yet, but her detector registered faint pulses, rhythmic, growing stronger. They're coming, she whispered. The fireworks began at 10:15, a thunderous explosion of color that lit the night sky. The crowd cheered, faces turned upward, eyes dazzled by the display. No one was watching the water. Isla was. At first she thought it was a trick of the light, reflections from the fireworks dancing on the river's surface. Then her M detector screamed and she saw them. Pale shapes emerging from the water. Dozens of them. Humanoid figures with elongated heads and webbed hands, each carrying a wand that sparked with blue electricity. Ethan, she hissed, film now. He was already recording, his camera capturing the impossible scene. The creatures moved onto the riverbank, silent and coordinated, their wands crackling with building energy. Get back, Isla shouted, but her voice was drowned by the fireworks. The first wand discharged. Not at the crowd, at the transformer station on the far bank. The electrical explosion lit the night, showering sparks across the water. The lights went out, plunging the festival into darkness. Then the screaming started. The creatures moved through the crowd with terrifying efficiency. Their wands sparked and people collapsed, twitching, dragged toward the water by webbed hands. Not everyone. Isla saw them bypass some, ignore others, focus on specific targets. Children, the elderly, the isolated. The pattern was clear. They were harvesting. "We have to do something," Ethan shouted. The transformer. Isla pointed to the electrical station, still sparking from the creature's attack. "If we overload it, we might." "Might what?" "They're electromagnetic. Their wands, their communication, it's all electrical. If we can generate a big enough pulse, you'll fry everything in a half-mile radius." Including them. She was already running, shoving through panicked crowds toward the riverbank. Behind her, she heard Ethan's footsteps, heard him still filming, documenting everything even as the world descended into chaos. They reached the transformer station, a metal shed humming with residual power. The creatures had damaged it, wires exposed, circuits fried, but the main feed was still active. "I need to bridge the terminals," Ethan said, already pulling tools from his bag. "But it'll take time." "How much time?" "Minutes, maybe 5. Isla looked back at the festival. The creatures had formed a line, a corridor leading to the water, herding stunned victims toward the river. She saw parents screaming, children crying, and among them, Sheriff Crow, standing still, watching, his face unreadable. He'd known this would happen. They're not trying to stop them, she realized. They're helping. "Isla." She turned back to Ethan. He'd exposed the main bus bars, thick copper conductors humming with lethal voltage. "When I connect these, it'll arc. Massive M pulse. It might kill the creatures or it might just stun them, but it'll definitely draw attention." "Do it." He hesitated. "Isla, I'm not a hero." "You don't need to be, you just need to be here." She placed her hand over his on the wire. Together. They connected the terminals. The explosion knocked them both backward, a blinding flash that turned night to noon. The M pulse rippled outward, visible as a distortion in the air, a heat shimmer spreading across the festival grounds. The effect was immediate. The creatures screamed, a sound like tearing metal, like underwater thunder, and collapsed. Their wands discharged uncontrollably, lightning arcing between them, frying their own kind in chain reactions of electrical fire. The river steamed. The survivors stared in shock as pale bodies floated to the surface, their wands still sparking, still dangerous even in death. Dozens of them, maybe 100, the scale of the infestation suddenly, horribly clear. Isla struggled to her feet, ears ringing, vision spotted. Ethan lay nearby, unconscious but breathing. She dragged him away from the water, away from the floating bodies, and looked back at the town. The festival was destroyed, tents burning, people screaming. And in the center of it all, Sheriff Crow, untouched by the pulse, staring at her with something like admiration. "You did it," he said, approaching slowly. "You actually did it. I saved your town." "You doomed it." Crow stopped 10 feet away, his hands in his pockets. "They weren't attacking Ms. Vasquez. They were recruiting, taking volunteers, the willing, those who wanted to escape. They were dragging people into the river. They were offering transcendence." Crow's voice was soft, almost gentle. "The water changes you. It doesn't kill you, it makes you better, immortal in a way, free from pain, from disease, from the slow decay of age." "You believe that?" "I know it." He pulled his hand from his pocket and Isla saw he was holding a wand, his wand, the one from his desk. "My grandmother went into the water in 1962, breast cancer terminal. She walked in herself, Ms. Vasquez, smiling, and I've seen her since, in the river, young again, happy." That's not what natural human," Crow laughed. "None of this is natural, Ms. Vasquez, but it's real. and now you've killed dozens of them, destroyed the Covenant, and left this town defenseless. They were monsters. They were guardians. Crow raised his wand, and Isla saw the blue sparks building at its tip. And now that they're dead, the others will come. The deep ones, the ones who don't negotiate. What others? The swarm. Crow pointed at the river where the water was churning, boiling, something massive moving beneath the surface. They were the farmers, Ms. Vasquez. The ones who tended the river, managed the population. Now you've killed the farmers, and the predators are waking. The water erupted. A shape breached the surface. Not the 4-foot creatures they'd seen before, but something larger, something vast. A head the size of a car, jaws lined with needle teeth, eyes like green lanterns burning in the night. It roared, and the sound was earthquakes and tidal waves and the death of worlds. "Run!" Crow shouted, and for a moment Isla thought he meant her. Then she saw him raise his wand, saw the blue arc leap from it toward the monster's eye, saw the creature flinch but keep coming, jaws opening to swallow him whole. Crow died screaming, but he died fighting. The wand's discharge bought seconds, enough seconds for Isla to grab Ethan and run, dragging him through the panicked crowd toward the parking lot. Behind them, the river was alive with monsters. Chapter 11, Aftermath. They didn't stop driving until they reached Columbus. Ethan slumped in the passenger seat, groaning as consciousness slowly returned. What happened? We lived. Isla's voice was hollow. She hadn't stopped shaking since the river, since the thing with the lantern eyes. Crow's dead, the creatures are dead, and something worse is waking up. The recording. I have the memory card. We need to disappear. She pulled into a rest stop, finally letting herself feel the horror of what she'd seen. Ethan, we killed dozens of them, but they weren't the threat. They were keeping something else at bay. What? The swarm, Crow's words. She pressed her hands against her eyes. The frog people were farming us, Ethan, managing us, taking the willing, the sick, the old, people who wanted to go, and in exchange they kept something else from coming up. And now that we've killed them, now the swarm comes. She laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. I thought I was saving people. I thought I was exposing the truth. You did expose the truth. The truth is that we need them, Ethan. The town needs them. We killed the only thing standing between Loveland and something worse. They sat in silence, the car's engine ticking as it cooled. So what do we do? Isla thought of the cave, the bones, the arranged offerings. She thought of a leaner honeycot waiting for the water to take her. She thought of Sheriff Crow fighting with his wand, dying to buy them time. We go back, she said. Are you insane? Crow had a wand. He knew how to use it. And he mentioned others, deeper ones, older ones. What if the frog people aren't all dead? What if there are more deeper down, ones that weren't at the festival? And you want to find them. I want to understand. She started the car. If there's a covenant, if there's a way to appease them, to restore the balance, we have to try. They'll kill us. Maybe. She pulled back onto the highway, heading south back toward Loveland. But if we don't try, that swarm, whatever it is, it won't stop at Loveland. It'll keep spreading, and no one will know why. They arrived back in town Friday morning, expecting devastation. Instead, they found normalcy. The festival grounds were being cleaned. The river was calm. People walked the streets, shell-shocked but functional, and when Isla asked about the previous night, they looked at her like she was crazy. Electrical fire, said a man sweeping debris. Transformer exploded. Sparks scared everyone. Couple people trampled in the panic, but nothing serious. Nothing serious. There were monsters in the river. The man looked at her pityingly. Miss, I think you hit your head. They found Sheriff Crow's office occupied by a deputy, a young woman who claimed Crow had called in sick. When Isla pushed, The deputy's expression went guarded. "Sheriff Crow is taking personal time. Is there something I can help you with?" "I need to see the cave, the one on the river." The drainage tunnel collapsed in 1987, been sealed ever since. "The other cave, the one in the water." The deputy's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about." They tried the historical society. Doris Chen wasn't there. The door was locked, the windows dark. A note taped to the glass read, "Closed indefinitely, inquiries to Town Hall." Town Hall was a maze of bureaucratic deflection. No, there were no records of strange occurrences. No, Sheriff Crow hadn't filed any unusual reports. No, they had no knowledge of electromagnetic phenomena or cryptid activity. "They're covering it up," Ethan said as they sat in the car, defeated. "Already, less than 12 hours. They've had practice." Isla stared at the river, visible through the buildings. 70 years of practice. A knock on the window made them both jump. An elderly woman stood outside, Eleanor Honeycott, looking impossibly older than she had 3 days ago, as if she'd aged years overnight. "Open the door," she mouthed. Isla did. "You stupid girl," Eleanor said, sliding into the back seat. "You stupid, brave girl, do you know what you've done?" "I tried to save people." "You killed the shepherds." Eleanor's voice was tired, ancient. "The frog people weren't our enemies. They were the only thing keeping the deep ones asleep." "The deep ones." "The swarm, the hunger." Eleanor leaned forward, her breath smelling of river water and decay. "They're older than the frog people, older than humans. They live in the underground seas, in the places where the water never sees light, and they're waking up." "How do we stop them?" "You don't," Eleanor smiled, and it was terrible. "But you can slow them, you can, make an offering." "What kind of offering?" Eleanor looked at the river. "The same kind we've always made, the willing, the worthy." "Human sacrifice." "Transcendence." Eleanor opened her hand, revealing a wand, perfect, unblemished, sparking faintly. "They gave me this last night. After you killed their children, they want to talk. They want revenge. They want a new covenant." Eleanor met Isla's eyes. "And they want you, Ms. Vasquez, you who saw them, who filmed them, who killed their kin. They want to know if you're predator or prey." "And if I'm prey?" "Then you go into the water." Eleanor's hand closed around the wand. "And if you're predator, you join the hunt." Chapter 12, The Covenant. They met at midnight. Isla stood on the riverbank where Ray Matthews had died, where Robert Honeycott had walked into the water. The festival was gone, the town asleep, and the river was glass black, reflecting stars that seemed too far away. Ethan was with her, his camera running, documenting everything. If this was the end, someone would know. Eleanor stood at the water's edge, the wand raised, its blue sparks painting her face in ghostlight. "They come," she whispered. The surface rippled. A head emerged, pale, wrinkled, eyes like wet stones, then another, and another. Dozens of them, rising silently, surrounding the 3 humans on the bank. The largest one, a head taller than the rest, its skin mottled with age spots, stepped forward. In its hand it held a wand, but this one was different. Larger, more elaborate, the rod of a leader. "You killed," it said. The voice was wrong, gurgling, wet like words spoken through water. But it was English, it was human. "I defended," Isla replied, her voice steady despite her terror. "You destroyed." The creature tilted its head, studying her. "Our children, our future, gone. They were taking people. We were offering salvation." The creature's eyes reflected starlight, ancient and patient. "Your kind sickens, your kind dies. We offer change, evolution, life without end. Life as one of you. Life as better than you." The creature raised its wand and Isla tensed, but the discharge was gentle, a pulse of light that washed over her, leaving her strangely calm. "You are different, daughter of air, you see. You question, you act. I'm a journalist. You are predator. The creature lowered its wand. We have watched your kind since the first apes descended from the trees. Most are prey, most are cattle, but some are wolves. What do you want? A new covenant. The creature gestured to the river where more shapes were rising, not frog people, but something else. Larger, hungrier. Their eyes glowed green in the darkness. The deep ones wake. Without our children to manage them, they will feed. They will not discriminate. They will not negotiate. And if I agree to your covenant, we will hunt together. The creature extended its hand, three-fingered and webbed. You will be our voice in the world of air. You will find the willing, the desperate, those who wish to transcend, and we will keep the deep ones sated. Human sacrifice. Mutual benefit. The creature's grip was cold, clammy, impossibly strong. Your kind fears death. We offer escape. In the water there is no cancer, no dementia, no pain, only change, only becoming. Isla looked at the deep ones, their lantern eyes watching her with alien hunger. She looked at Ethan, pale and terrified, his camera still recording. She looked at Alina, who nodded, almost smiling. And she thought of the bones in the cave, arranged like offerings. The families who'd lost loved ones but gained peace. The town that had survived 70 years by feeding its sick and elderly to the river. It wasn't evil, it was pragmatic, it was survival. But it wasn't human. No, she said. The creature's eyes narrowed. You refuse. I refuse to be your shepherd. I refuse to feed people to monsters. She stepped back, away from the water. If the deep ones wake, I'll fight them. I'll expose them. I'll burn this whole town down if I have to, but I won't become part of your farm. The creature was silent for a long moment. Then it hissed, a sound like steam escaping, like water boiling. Then you are prey after all. The wand raised. But before it could discharge, something else moved in the darkness. A shape on the bridge above, a silhouette with a rifle. The shot was thunder. The creature's head exploded, black ichor spraying across the riverbank. It collapsed, thrashing, and the others screamed, that terrible metallic sound, and dove for the water. Isla looked up. Mark Harrison stood on the bridge, smoking rifle in hand, his face carved from stone. Get out of here, he shouted, now. They ran. Harrison met them at the car, his face gray with exhaustion. I heard you were back, heard you were talking to them. How did you? I've been watching for 50 years, girl. I know when they're active. He looked at the river where the deep ones were still visible, their eyes burning. That shot won't stop them. Nothing stops them, but it'll slow them down. Why help us? Because Ray was my partner. Harrison's voice cracked. And because someone has to fight even if we can't win. Alina made her choice. Harrison pointed to the riverbank where the old woman was walking slowly toward the water. She's going home, to her husband, to her peace. Stop her. I can't. Harrison's hand was trembling. And I wouldn't if I could. She's 93, girl. She's earned her rest. They watched as Alina Honeycott walked into the river, the water rising to her knees, her waist, her chest. The deep ones surrounded her, but they didn't attack. They welcomed her. Then she was gone. The water was still. Epilogue. The news reports called it a gas leak. The festival explosion, the deaths, the missing persons, all attributed to a ruptured natural gas line under the riverbank. Tragic, unpreventable, under investigation. Loveland rebuilt. The Frogman Festival returned the following year, bigger than ever. The town needed the tourism, needed the distraction, needed to pretend. Isla wrote her story. She submitted it to 27 publications and 27 editors rejected it. Too sensational, insufficient evidence, sounds like fiction. She published it herself online under a pseudonym. It got 300 views before being buried by algorithms. Ethan returned to New York to grad school to a life of normalcy, but he kept the footage, kept the M readings, kept the truth in an encrypted drive, waiting for a world ready to hear it. Isla stayed in Ohio. She couldn't leave. Something had changed in her, in the water, something she didn't understand. She dreamed of the river, woke with her sheets damp, felt the call of the deep every time she passed a storm drain, every time she heard running water. She started drinking, heavily. It helped drown the dreams. Then on the first anniversary of the festival, she received a package, no return address. Inside, a single object. A wand. It was beautiful, she had to admit. Copper and silver, wrapped in sinew that might once have been human, and it sparked when she touched it, not painfully but gently, like a greeting. A note accompanied it, written in handwriting she didn't recognize. The deep ones sleep, the covenant holds, you are remembered. She should have destroyed it, should have thrown it in the river, buried it, melted it down. Instead, she kept it, in a drawer, in the dark. She told herself it was evidence, proof, something to show the world when they were finally ready to listen. But late at night, when the whiskey stopped working and the dreams grew too loud, she took it out, held it, felt its warmth, its life, its promise. And sometimes, just sometimes, she walked to the river and stood on the bank, watching the water, waiting. The water was patient. So was she. Thank you for listening to tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like and subscribe.